Welcome back to DIYs with Sonia. I am so excited to kick off my Christmas DIY season with a video that's packed full of inspiration and high-end holiday dupes. Today I'm sharing 25 of my favorite Pottery Barn and McGee Co inspired Christmas DIYs. All look for less ideas that bring that designer festive charm to your home without the high price tag. Whether you're decorating your tree, styling your mantel, or adding cozy touches throughout your home, these dupes are sure to give you tons of budget-friendly inspiration to start your Christmas decorating season. So grab your hot cocoa, get comfy, and let's dive into these beautiful high-end Christmas DIYs. And if you love affordable high-end dupes and seasonal decor ideas, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I have so many brand new Christmas DIYs coming your way this season. For the very first DIY, you are going to need some oranges as well as baking sheet lined with some racks, or you can just put your oranges straight onto the rack. And we are going to be recreating these orange slices from McGee Co. And as you can see, the set of 12 of them is $22. I had picked up my oranges. They were $1.77 a pound, and this was just under $5, and it gave me double the amount. You're also going to need some twine so you can attach it to the dried slices so they are able to be hung as ornaments. I am using half of them as ornaments and half of them will be as bowl fillers. So you want to slice your oranges about quarter of an inch. And I did measure just so I can get a guide, and then the rest of them I just sliced using that first one as a guide. You can put these directly onto your oven racks in the oven. I just thought it might be a little bit less messy if I lined my baking sheet with parchment paper and then I added some racks to them. These are racks from our smoker, stand-up smoker, and they fit perfectly into my onto my baking sheet. Once I had sliced all of my oranges, I'm going to add them to the baking sheet. Now you want to preheat your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Mine KitchenAid Pro Style oven did not have a 200 bake setting, but it did have a warming setting and proofing setting, and warming setting is at 200, so that is what I turned on for mine. When you are doing this project, I just want to let you know you want to give yourself plenty of time. I'm talking 6-7 hours. It is a very easy project to do, but it does take time. So if you do not want to leave your oven unattended, you have to be home for the duration of, and it took, for me, it took 6.5 hours. And then I had two or three of them that were a little bit thicker, and I had to leave those for a little bit longer. I have read blogs where they said it would take 4 to 5 hours, and some did it at 250. Now, some of them said not to do it at 250 because that's when they will burn a lot easier. Whereas if you do them on a lower for longer, they won't burn as quickly. So you do have to keep an eye on them once you are approaching that 5 or 6 hours. I would say at 5 hours, start checking them. If you've never done this, I would start checking them at 4 hours just to make sure, depending on what your oven is like. But before I put mine in the oven, I did take a napkin and or paper towel and just dried them all up, just the tops because they are very wet. And I think this does help the drying process as well. You can also use your dehydrator to do this if you have one, or your air fryer also has a dehydrate. Um, well, mine does. The Ninja Double one has a dehydrate setting as well. However, I would not be able to put all of these into my little drawers on the air fryer, so I chose to do it in the oven. And here they are. This is what they look like once they were dry, um, or baked. I did read somewhere that you could sprinkle right when they come out and they're hot. You could sprinkle some powdered sugar onto them, and they will give them a shiny look. However, I was a little bit afraid of doing that for storage purposes, that it might create some mold. While they are stored away. Not sure if that would happen. If you've ever done that and stored them successfully in a Ziploc bag with your Christmas decor, let us know down below. I did take a large needle and cut up some twine to the length that I thought would be great for hanging. However, I could not thread the twine through because it was a little bit thicker than the opening, so I did just wrap it around and pushed it through, and that seemed to have worked. You could also use a hot glue gun and just add a little dollop on top and attach your twine to that. I thought this was a little bit nicer looking than having that hot glue on there. I know that McGee Co, the price wasn't that astronomical at $22 for set of 12. However, this was um, a lot cheaper, at $5 for the double the amount. And the plus part of this was it made your house smell so nice. And I think that this DIY, these ornaments are gonna look great with my theme. I'm going for more of a natural rustic look this year. I've kind of went that way last year as well, but I am focusing more on it this year than I did last year. Like I said, I love the way these turned out, and I think they are going to look great on my tree. For my next DIY, I couldn't believe my luck when I saw these three bells on Facebook Marketplace for $10. I was very excited and knew exactly what I wanted to do with them. McGee Co. in their catalog has these three rattan bells for $188. And as soon as I saw these, I knew exactly what I was going to do with them. They did, as you can see, they're red, they're not very attractive looking, and they smelled really, really bad. So I did take the rusty wire off, and then I ended up giving them a good cleaning to get rid of the smell. For the paint, I did go with a chalk paint in the Annie Sloan Old Ochre, just because it is a beige paint. That was the only reason why I'm using it. I've had it for a while. It is kind of starting to get thick, meaning I need to use it up, so I don't have to add too much water to it. And I've been using it for different projects, and this one was also one of them. And chalk paint also, I find, does a lot better coverage than acrylic paint, meaning you probably won't have to go with it several different with several different coats, especially because I was painting over red. I did get some water and water the paintbrush as well, just to get that helps to get into little nooks and crannies if the paint is a little bit more wet. And you definitely want to paint the inside and the outside of the bell. Once all the three bells were painted and they had some time to dry, I went in with some brown and then also added a little bit more of this old ochre to it, and some water, and I just dabbed it with some paper towel, water, and then into the brown paint, and just to add a little bit of depth to the paint, and so it's not so beige. And you want to blend until it looks like it's always been there. I was absolutely thrilled with the way these turned out. I think they are such a great dupe for those bells, and you never know what you can find in your thrift store or at your on your Facebook marketplace. So make sure you keep checking. For your next DIY, this can be absolutely free depending on what you have at home on hand. So we are going to be recreating these bleached pine cones, and set of 15 is $12. Again, not overly expensive, but if we can do it for free, why not? So I did have to go buy bleach because I don't typically have bleach at home. Um, I just buy it when I need it and usually use it all up. So you're going to need something to soak your pine cones in, and I have a variety of styles of pine cones and sizes. And you are also going to have to give yourself time because this took 24 hours plus some drying time. So pretty much 2 day, almost 2 days worth of DIYing. Again, not something that is very involving, and this one you could leave unattended if you wanted to. But for this, you will need also some water, and it will be 2 parts water to 1 part bleach. And then if you saw me trying to fit that plate, and you will need something that will keep the pine cones submerged so they don't pop up, so something heavy to put on top. And this goes without saying that if you are, whenever you're working with bleach, make sure you are very careful so you don't get your clothes bleached or wear clothes that you don't care if they do get bleached. Cover your work area and make sure you wash your hands thoroughly after working with bleach, because that can linger on your hands for a while, and if you touch something, it will bleach it instantly. I did stir them a little bit just to mix them up, just so that way I feel like all of it was covered up with this mixture. And then I add in my plate, and I did leave this out on my deck on top of the fire pit so the dogs wouldn't knock it down. And this is what they looked like once I had took them out 24 hours later. As you can see, some the smaller ones were almost white, some of the bigger ones not so much. I did end up putting them in the oven for about 4 hours at the 200 setting, and then they opened up while they were there. This just speeded up the process of drying. You can also leave them to air dry. And as you can see, the ones that looked brown, once I took them out, were actually a lot more bleached than the smaller ones that were completely white once they came out. I absolutely love the way this turned out. I think it's going to be such a great bowl filler, and it's going to also look great mixed in with just some regular pine cones. Next year was also another one that was very inexpensive to do. I had this frame at home from a different project, but it is from Dollar Tree, so you can pick it up for $1.50 in Canada or $1.25 in US. You can use any frame you want. There is no it's a look for less, right? So anything you have at home. And we are going to be recreating this look. It is a holiday tree art for $42. Now I am going to do my own spin on it, but that was an inspiration piece for me. So if I was to do that one, I would have just left the frame as is, or would have tried to find a frame that had a little bit of a thicker border. But I'm going to make this more suitable for my decor in the area that I'm planning on using it. So I used the metallic gold spray paint just to give it some color, and I'm not doing like 100% coverage. I do want some of that black to show through. So once this frame had dried, once this frame has dried, or I should say while it was drying, I went ahead and created some of my own art to use. And I use Canva to do so, and I will actually included down in the description box for free. If you want to use any of it, you can download it and use it yourself. So as you saw, I created a vintage Christmas tree and some of the Nutcracker music notes. So I am going to be using the Nutcracker music notes for my frame. And for this DIY, I might create another one with that Christmas tree. And I don't know if you saw my DIY that I did for fall, where I used a print that I printed and I added Mod Podge so it looked like it was painted. So you could totally do that on the Christmas tree as well. I wouldn't necessarily do it on here, but hey, you can do whatever you want if that's what you want to do. So I'm just cutting out here because the way I printed it, the burnt looks, I just wanted to cut that out. It's gonna go on the back of the cardboard, so I didn't want that white to be there. And here it is. I think this is such a classic look and it's gonna go so well with most of my decor anywhere I choose to use it. Next DIY is another ornament DIY. I absolutely love making ornaments, my own ornaments for Christmas. I gift these, I use them myself, and I think the possibilities are endless. So for this, I'm using gold, brown, and red paint, and I am going to be recreating this glass iron ornament that are $12. Now, these ones are not glass because I do not want glass in my house. I run a home daycare and that can be just a whole disaster with glass ornaments. So I picked these up for $1.50 at a Dollar Tree. And I'm also going to be using some flour. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is adding 2 coats of this brown paint to 2 of them, and then I'm going to do 2 coats of the red paint to 2 of them. Now, originally I was going to use a Christmas red, but I did find it was a little bit bright, so just decided to use a deep red instead of Christmas red, and the brown is called um, burnt umber. I think that's what the brown color is called. While the first coat was drying, I did go ahead and spray paint the little caps of the ornaments, and I use a dark walnut to do so. I just thought it gave them that vintage look. You could also do, if you have like what is the antique brass would look good as well. Gold would look good. Even just black would look good as well. I think it adds such an elevated look to the ornaments. So I did that while the first coat was drying. Then I applied the second coat of the paint, and then I did not wait for the second coat to dry before I dusted it with some flour. This is definitely not a new technique. You want to cover the whole ornament with flour, at least I did for mine, and then you want to let it completely dry before you brush it off. I've shared these type of DIY ornaments last year. I am doing something different after the flour is dusted off. Now, I thought I did show how I was dusting the flour off, but the camera wasn't on when I was doing it. So I'm just showing you how I did it. I used a bristling brush, stippling brush, and we want it to be dry and clean, and just dust all the flour off. You can also use a rag to remove the flour, but I like this way better. Now, I have Annie Sloan Antique Gilding Wax, which is almost like a rub and buff, but it did not really work very well with flour on there. So I ended up doing just two different types of gold that I had on hand of acrylic paint. One was spun gold and the other one was yellow gold. And I kind of blended the two colors together on the ornament, not while I was applying it. And I was using brush, and then I did end up using a napkin or a paper towel to do that. You can do this any color that you would like. As you saw, theirs was a little bit more on the antique black kind of color, which you could totally do, and it had a little bit of sparkle, which you could add to it as well, if you didn't have sparkly black paint. But you just want to continue doing this until you blend the colors together, and you still want to leave some of that bottom color showing through, and the flower just gives it a little bit more texture. And here is what they look like all done. I absolutely love the way these look. And adding some ribbon to them definitely makes them look even more expensive. For my first DIY, I got a ton of bottle brush trees. Some I bought, some I had on hand, and also this board that I had on hand, because we are going to be recreating this lit bottle brush tree centerpiece from Pottery Barn. It goes for about $183, as you saw. Now, some of these bluish green bottle brush trees, I don't love the colors, so we're going to spray paint them with some metallic gold. I did pick up some beige bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree, and I think this gold will complement that color really nice. While the bottle brush trees were drying, I hot glued some deer moss onto the board off camera, and then I took the board out and spray painted with some dark walnut. Now starts the fun part, is hot gluing these trees to the board. So these are the beige trees that I picked up at like a taupe color at Dollar Tree. I absolutely love them. I thought that they looked quite high end. McGee Co even has ones that are a little bit sitting on like a pedestal. But they're pretty much look this exactly the same, and I picked up three of those. Then I had the rest of them on hand, and I just tried to add variety. The at Pottery Barn you can get all just gold, or you can get ones that have a variety of different colored bottle brush trees as well. So that was my inspiration for mine. Since these were the same, I had three of these that were the same color and the same size. I spaced them unevenly, and then I'm going to fill in with all the rest of them. Once they were all on, I added some small battery operated fairy lights to them. I love how these all came together. It gives you that earthy, rustic vibe that my decor is all about this year. And if you want to see how I'm going to style with these, make sure you are subscribed to my home channel where I share all of my decorating videos. For my next project, I picked up this wooden tree. I think it's beautiful as it is, a little bit too much sparkle for my liking, but it was coming off just by rubbing it. So if you don't like the little sparkles, little glitter, you could just take it off. I don't think it was even as much of a glitter as it looked like crystal sugar was on it, but nevertheless, it was still sparkling, so I wanted to, or glittering, I wanted to take that off a little bit. But like I said, the tree looked really good as was, but I had something in my mind that I wanted to do with it. So if I want to, I'm gonna go pick up another one like this and leave it as is. So I got some cinnamon brown and painted the whole tree except the bottom, actually even the bottom part, this with this cinnamon brown because I wanted to recreate this gingerbread tree. I absolutely love the way this looks. Now, I could have picked up a very similar looking tree at Dollarama as well that kind of went to the ground and looked more like a ceramic decor piece versus more of the rustic look that this tree has. But I did love the way this tree looked. So I thought I can combine best of both worlds and do this one in that gingerbread tree look. It did only need one coat of paint to cover it all. And then once the paint fully dried, I went in with some puff paint and created a design. I found that this was so much fun to create, and I absolutely enjoyed making this project so much so that I am thinking about going and getting some more things to add the puff paint to. And here it is. I just love the way it turned out. For my next project, I am remaking one of my projects from last year. I had made several of these bells and I found I wasn't quite using them, so I decided to take one of them and redo the look. There, I have found several different websites that had these bells. The one was this one, which was about $30, and then I also saw them on Pottery Barns, although they were sold out. And So I don't quite know how much they were. Mine was one of those bells that you can pick up at Dollar Rama or Dollar Tree. Sometimes they vary in the shape that they come in, but they're all pretty much the same size. So to create this look, you're going to need some thin rope. You can use thicker rope as well if that's what you want. I opted for thinner rope because that's what it looked like on the picture. And then I just wrapped it around and I went in a couple rows of it. You want to try and space them out evenly. I tried my best without actually measuring. You could also measure so that they're spaced out evenly. And then I mixed up some white acrylic paint with some cornstarch just to make it thicker. If you have some chalk paint, you could use that. I just wanted it to give it a good coverage and also give it a little bit of texture. And then I painted the whole piece with this paint, and it needed 2 coats. This was such an easy DIY, and I think it turned out great, and it's gonna look great in a little Christmas vignette, as part of a little Christmas vignette, or styled on a shelf. These are so popular this year, is just some vintage prints inside a frame. I did print out this Christmas picture, Santa picture that I made, but it did not fit inside the frame. So I was debating what to do, and then Sandra had mentioned she had some fabric she wasn't using, and I thought this would be a perfect thing to use here. So I had picked up this frame from Value Village. It was $7.99. I actually love the frame, and I didn't mind the print that was in there. So I am carefully going to remove it so I can reuse the frame, and safely store the print so that way it doesn't get damaged, because I might be adding it back in and using it as part of my decor outside of Christmas. And for this, I was trying to kind of get the look, the inspiration for this project. It doesn't necessarily look the same, but an inspiration for this project was the same as the inspiration last DIY video I made with prints in it. I'm going to add it here just so you can see what I'm talking about. This obviously isn't an expensive piece at $20. It's very hard to find, and it's even harder if you don't have Target anywhere near you. So I decided to recreate another print because I did needed one more for my master bedroom. And so I took that fabric that Sandra had offered, and I added to it. I put the print first just to use it as a guide. I traced it and then cut it out, and then I added it to the frame. I did make sure that it fit before I reassembled it, and I also gave a little dollop of glue just in a couple corners just to keep the fabric in place so it doesn't move while I'm reassembling the frame. You could also take this frame and paint it or add some rub and buff if that's what you wanted, but I thought this frame looked really pretty without any upcycling needed. So I just kept it as is. For this next project, you're going to need some sort of a Bristol board. I am using one that I had on hand, and I'm going to cut out some strips out of it, 2 strips, because we are going to be making this brass bow tree topper from McGee Co. It retails for $22 US. I wanted to make this for such a long time, and I was trying to figure out the best way to do it. And then I did see Evelyn Hernandez do a similar look, so I thought I'd try it out. I try it out myself. So I am going to you could measure it so it's exactly the same size as the McGee Co inspo. However, I just eyeballed it. I did not need it to be the same size as that one. I really liked the look of it, and that is what I was trying to recreate. So I just took a piece and then I twisted it so that way the two ends meet, and then I into a bow, and then I did that with another piece. And so I took the one strip and I made sure that they are cut the same size. So one will be a little bit longer, and that one will be your bottom, and then the shorter one will be your bow. And then you assemble the bows individually, and then you put them together, and then you put the hanging pieces on it. Um, this was so easy to make. You could make even ornaments like this, make them a little bit smaller. You can make them even bigger. It's all up to you. That's the beauty of making things yourself. You can customize them and make them fit your style or your needs. And you can also paint them or put rub and buff or whatever you want on them. They don't have to be the gold. You can paint them any color you want them to be. So now it's time to assemble it. So I'm going to put these two pieces together, and then I'm going to add the hanging pieces. I also cut a little diamond shape to fit right over top of where they were overlapping, because on the original piece, it did have, or the one from McGee Co, it did have a little, it looked like a little piece on top. So that is what I am adding here. And then I took it outside and I spray painted with my bronze color as well as this is antique bronze. And then I also spray painted it with some metallic gold. Then while it was still wet, I brought it inside and used a craft sponge just to blend the paint all together. And once it was dry, I added a little bit of hot glue and craft wire to the back of it so that way I can attach it to the top of my Christmas tree. You could also add a clothespin to it if you would like. I just love how easy this was to make and how beautiful it looks on top of my tree. I have been obsessed with juniper berries this year, but they are impossible to find in my where I live. You can get them on Amazon.com by from a floral, but they do not ship to my um, to Ontario. Pottery Barn also has some as well, which are a little too expensive for me. So I decided to make my own. So I went to the search for some stems that I can use to recreate this. So I picked up these two stems, two different stems. One is looks a little bit frosted because originally I was thinking of using those berries. And then the other one was just a variety of cedar branches with some red berries and some pine cones. So I needed to disassemble everything and create my own. I did decide to make three of these, and I ended up using all the branches, even the frosted ones, but I did not use any pine cones or berries. So here is what they look like. I wish the branches were a touch more droopier, but we can shape them and mold them if that's what we want. I also left the long stems on them because I'm just going to bend them if I need to add them to a shorter vase. I also remember I had some loose cedar branches from a garland and I added those as well. That gave me a bit of more of a droopiness that I was looking for. Since I decided that white berries were too long, was going to make my own using some air dry clay that I had left over from the daycare when we were making Mother's Day presents. So I just wanted to warm up the clay in my hands, and then I just made ones that were not a lot smaller than the white berries, but definitely smaller. And I just rolled them all into little balls. I think I made altogether about 30 of them. However, I think I did not use three of them, so I used 27 altogether. Then I took all of the blue paints that I had, trying to figure out a color that would work the best for these berries. I did end up mixing a couple different colors just to achieve the look that I was going for. I did not wait for these to fully dry before I went ahead and did that. I was going to use this stick to put the berries on for painting, but it was too big, so I just ended up rolling them in the paint. And I forgot to mention that I also got some sugar, just normal sugar. And once I was done rolling them in the paint, I dipped them into sugar. So it gave them a little bit of that frosted look. And then I repeated this process for all of them. A little time consuming, but so worth it. And then I went ahead and I had glued them onto random spots on to my branches to I did look at the picture just to kind of get an idea how the juniper berries were on those far branches, and I was trying to recreate that look. So here they all are on the branches, and I did allow them to dry fully before I proceeded to the next step. I wasn't planning on doing a next step, but the more I was looking at them, I felt like the blue needed to be tamed down a little bit. So once they were fully dry, I went in with some white paint and just added and a small brush and just added a little bit of white paint to to them just to tone down the blue a little bit. I think these turned out so pretty, and for under I think it came up to about $11. I can't complain. Next project is another ornament, and this time I picked up these ornaments at a Dollar Tree, and I needed some green ornaments, so we're gonna be making some more suede ornaments, flocked ornaments, without flocking. And I am going to make them green because the tree that I added in my living room, I wanted to make it green. So I painted them all green. I gave them um, two coats of color, and between the coats of color paint, I am going to just add some of the iced cappuccino paint to my tops just to make them look a little bit more vintage. And I am using some wet paper towel to do that. I find if I'm using a brush, it just slides off. So I let the first coat of paint dry before I applied the second coat of paint, but the second coat of paint I did not allow to dry. I added some baking soda to them. I feel like these ornaments, there are so many different but yet similar techniques to creating them, and each and every one of them gives you a slightly different look. So as these might be a little bit repetitive, but um, they're all, like I said, all a little different, and they do give you a unique look. So I love mixing and matching these techniques on my ornaments so that way I can have a variety of them. And most of my ornaments on a couple of my trees are all homemade ornaments, and they all look a little different. So once it had completely dried, I brushed it all off. At this point, you could like I said, many different techniques. You can add rub and buff, you can add a sponge on, dab on a little bit of gold paint, but I'm going to keep mine just like this. You can also spray some sealant on them so that way the baking soda stays on permanently so it doesn't over the years rub off completely. But I just love the way these turned out. I think they are a perfect addition to the first project I'm working on is something I wanted to create for a very long time. So I'm using some tins, a gift basket, a big gift box, glass bowl, half a plastic ornament, and a styrofoam ball that I cut off just the end to fit on top of the largest canister. I'm going to be hot gluing these items to the top, so you want to just find something that creates a dome and it fits perfectly on the top of the canister that you are using. I'm using wide variety just to get the different heights. And I'm going to be recreating these vintage cowbells. These are large cowbells, and here in Canada, they're hard to come by. So always have to resort to shopping online. And on Amazon, they're around $50, and they go all the way up to Wayfair for over $200. Now, I'm recreating this for free because I did have all these supplies at home on hand. You don't have to use tins, you can use anything that resembles the bell base. And then for the dome, same thing. You can cut off foam balls to put on top, even the foam balls that the bouncy balls that are kind of squishy, they work well as well. Anything that creates that dome shape, like I said. The next item that you're going to need is a drywall compound, and this will blend the whole thing together. Um, so that's why I didn't remove any stickers, and the David's tea canisters have the David's tea writing. It's a little raised, so I didn't worry about any of that because the compound will cover it up. And you can also use a compound to create that hammered metal look that those bells have. You can make it as smooth as you want or as rough as you like. I went with a more of a rough look because that's what I prefer, but the beauty of creating your own DIYs is that you can make them look any way you want. I even added a little lines at the bottom because some of the bells that I've seen have those kind of uh, a divot at the bottom, so that's what I created, and they're a little bit of chunkier on top to create the line that they have on the original pieces. Like I said, totally up to you. This is simply an inspiration piece that I'm trying to recreate. So I did this with both of them and with all three of them, and you have to allow 24 hours of drying time, especially if you go heavy with the drywall compound. You don't have to have the large container of it. Those small ones that are pink and then turn white when they're done will work just as well. I just had that on hand. Next item that you're going to need is some sort of a roll. This could be toilet paper, paper towel. I am using a shelf liner roll just because I do use a clear shelf liner for a lot of laminating stuff for my daycare supplies. So I always have these rolls on hand and I use them for different crafting with the daycare as well. So I'm cutting off 3 rings. I did end up cutting four because one of them did not turn out. And then I also had to go in and trim it. And this is simply because that roll is quite hard and it was getting squished and a little misshapen. And then I cut just one right in the middle and one cut to open it up. And this will be your loop for the top of the bells. So I'm going to use hot glue gun to glue these on. You want to allow the hot glue to completely dry before doing anything with them. Now I'm going to paint them, and for painting, I am going to mix up 3 different gold colors. One is spun gold, the other one is yellow gold, and the third one is metallic gold. And this just gave me different dimensions on the bell with almost like different shading, and that is what I was trying to achieve. So I'm not blending the paints on a plate together. I'm going to be dipping my paintbrush into all three paints at the same time and then painting with it. And I love the coloring that this created.
Go outside, the snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile as quirky as mine. We're holding hands to keep each other warm while we stand and watch a choir performing all the Christmas songs that we love. Yeah, all the Christmas songs that we love. And in a while we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate by the fire.
And here they are all painted. And now to add a bit more depth to the design to the bells, I am adding some iced cappuccino, which is just a nice shiny brown color. And to it, I'm gonna add brown umber or burnt umber to just darken it up a little bit. And I'm just going to place this color, this paint on random spots. And then I'm going to take a wet paper towel and blend it all in. This will just give it a little bit more depth, kind of accenting all the different textures that are on the bell.
'Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give you a Christmas, a moment we'll fill with love and joy. So
and to complete the look, I tied some rope to them. I think this turned out so nice, and I think it's a great dupe. And if you love bells as much as I do, then definitely give this project a try. And I also want to mention, if you want to see how I style these in my home, make sure you check out my home channel where I share all of my decorating ideas, tips, and all the fun stuff that is home decor related on that channel. Link is in the description box. For my next project, we are going to be making some ribbons. This is simply for the convenience, not necessarily saving money, although I am saving money because I've had the supplies on hand. And the one thing that's really popular is a linen ribbon this year. Amazon does have a great selection of them, and they're not overly priced. As you can see, a spool of it is $17.99 on Amazon Canada. Sure, it's cheaper on US site. I've had this linen curtain in my stash. I've been using it for different projects throughout the year. So I wanted to just cut up a couple ribbons for my front tree, which I totally changed the look of it this year. And I'm very excited with the way it's looking. And this ribbon was a great addition to it. So you want to cut out strips in the width that you would like your ribbon to look like. And once you have it cut out, you want to fringe the ends, so that way it creates that fringed look that those ribbons have. You can cut this ribbon as wide as you want, especially if you're making bows for the tree, or you can cut them real narrow to tie your ornaments onto the tree with. The choice is yours. And I just love the fact that I can customize this as to anything that I need it for. And you can make a ribbon out of velvet, out of any kind of a easy flowing material that you have on hand, any fabric that you have on hand. If you want to reuse some of that fabric that you may be just having laying around your house. I like making pillowcases out of curtain fabrics. I like just for decorations, obviously. They're great. You can even make tree skirts with random fabric. It's really versatile what you can make out of, and it's free.
kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. I don't need any presents as long as I spend this day with you. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. Ooh. I feel so blessed that I can be with you. 'Cause God knows.
To add these ribbons to my tree, I took some crafting wire and I thread it through the loop, and then I'm going to use the ends to wrap it around the tree branches.
I've been longing for you, just wanna hold you close. You know the stars are shining just for you. Let's take a walk, and we can follow the moonlight till we reach a place we can stay. Maybe kiss a bit and dream away. And in a while we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate.
I absolutely love the way this ribbon looks on my tree, and as you can see, it's sitting right next door to my few DIYs ago ornaments that I've made.
'Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give
And it
you
wouldn't
a
be Christmas
Christmas.
DIYs if I wasn't making some sort of an ornament. And I just want to share with you all the different techniques that you can use to create your own ornaments that fit your style. We are recreating these textured ornaments from Crate and Barrel, and I picked these up at Value Village. They were $2.99 originally. I think they're like $3.44 at Walmart. So not huge savings, but they are a little bit cheaper than getting them at Dollar Tree. Now I wanted to paint these in a dark, almost that burgundy, dark, deep red. But I didn't have the deep red color, so I just took the deep red that I had and added some of that burnt umber to it, and this gave it that deep darker color. I have added a new Christmas tree in my living room. Well, new to the living room Christmas tree. It's not a new Christmas tree to me. And I want to add ornaments to it that give me that moody vibe. So this is why I'm going with the deep red color. You can obviously make them any color you want. And then I added some baking soda. However, I did add a little too much. So it was a little bit harder for me to paint them, more of dabbing the paint on because it was very, very thick. Could have added more paint and just kind of worked with it until I got the texture that was easy pliable. But so my advice to you is just add a little less baking soda to it because this puffed up pretty pretty high, and like I said, but I made it work. It was a little bit it gave me that chunky look that I was going for. I did wet my brush just so it's a little bit easier to apply. And you want the whole ornament to be covered with the red color. It doesn't necessarily have to be fully covered that you can't see through it. So I was going for that textured look, and I think this ornament is exactly that. So right after I painted all of them, I added some flour to them. I love using flour to add, I don't even know, it gives it that almost like a textured smooth look. And you want this to completely dry. I did let mine dry for overnight, but it's not necessary. So while the ornaments were drying, I painted the caps, and I used ice cappuccino acrylic paint for that, as well as my sponge. I always find that it's easier to sponge the paint onto the caps unless you're spray painting than actually painting it, because I find the paint just slides off. If you are using a paintbrush, I would just go gently dabbing instead of actually brushing. And then once I added paint, the ice cappuccino paint, I did go to all of them. I did go in with a little bit of black, just blending everything in. And that gave me that antique rustic look on the caps. So once the ornaments were completely dry, I brushed all the flour off that was loose. Now for the next step, you can use Rub and Buff. I am running very low on it, so I just ended up using some of my paints, and I'm going to go in with metallic gold. This is an acrylic paint that I got at Dollar Tree, and I just put it into the bottom of the Ziploc bag, put the ornament in, and then I just squished it and moved it around inside the bag. And I love the different painting technique this is, and it gives the ornament even more texture, and it randomly covers it. There's no like um a smooth finish to it. I just wanted a random finish, and that is exactly what happens in this bag when you're painting it this way. So here is what it looks like, and I did this to all of them, and then I ended up adding some nice ribbon to it. I went with black because I am going for that moody look. And I love the way this looks. It looks so custom and it looks vintage, and I love all the different textures and lines that are showing through in this ornament.
I don't need any presents as long as
Now, to add even more twinkle to my DIYs, I am going to be recreating these LED fog branches from Pottery Barn. These are quite expensive for set of 6. I will be creating set of 4 just because I did not need 6 of them. I was thinking of painting the branches black, but then I decided just to leave them as they are. They are just clippings from my garden. And then I'm also going to use some lighting. I picked these lights, LED lights from Dollarama for 250. They are on a timer as well. So I thought that's a great thing because I can just place them, turn them on, and forget about them. And to attach them to the branches, I'm going to use craft wire that came as close as possible to the color of the branches. I cut up about 12 little pieces of wire and used pretty much the all 12 for the 2 branches. And I'm going to be adding one set of lights for both branches, so kind of adding them together. Now to add the lights to the branches, I'm going to unravel the lights. I'm going to put them as close to the stick, going up and down the sticks as possible. And every inch and a half, I'm going maybe 2 inches, I'm going to wrap the wire around. So that way this will keep the lights in place, flush up against the branches. The nice thing about these lights, the wire that they are on, is that it's bendy and you can shape it and you can even wrap it around the branches.
I spend this day with you. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. Ooh, 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 ooh. And in a while, we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate.
Now, when I get close to the end of the first stick, I'm not going all the way down because it's not necessary. Because that's going to be the part that's going to be submerged in a vase. Now, if you wanted to put these in a clear vase and you still wanted the inside of the vase to be lit up, then I would just continue all the way to the bottom, but then you might not have enough for the second one. So I would just go back up again and rewrap the whole branch and then just do a separate light for the next branch. I am, however, going to just use them in my vases along with my the greenery stems that I have, just to add a little bit of lighting to the vase. So I didn't need to go all the way to the bottom. And then I repeat the same way of attaching the lights to the second branch as I did with the first branch. I think they look so nice in the vase. And like I said, it just adds that little bit of sparkle to my vases, a little bit of whimsical touch, especially in the evenings when all the lights are off, and it just makes the whole space look cozy. Like I said, I attached them to I added them to 2 different vases in my decor.
Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give you a
For
Christmas.
my next DIY, I couldn't believe my luck when I went thrifting and I found this Sherpa blanket for $11.50. It is quite a large blanket and I knew exactly what I wanted to use it for. And I wanted to create Mr. and Mrs. Spice from Pottery Barn. These are $90 each. And I knew I could create this with using about a quarter of this blanket and some ribbon. So I went ahead and I drew out a freehanded um, a form for both of them. I just drew half of it and then I folded so that way they were even sizes on both ends, if that makes sense. And I did it, I have an easel paper that I use for daycare, and I just did that on there, so it's quite large. Then I took a marker and I traced it onto the blanket, and the other side of the blanket is just fleece, whereas this is Sherpa, and I used both of them. So one side is fleece and the other one is Sherpa, even on the pillows. Now there are several different ways that you can put this pillow together. I am probably showing you the easiest. Well, anyways, for me it's the easiest. So you can cut out the forms and sew the pillowcases together. I do not know how to sew using a sewing machine. My mom is on vacation, so that probably would have been the easiest way for me to do, is to get her to sew the pillows together and just leaving a slit so I can stuff it, and then I would have hand stitched the closing. You could also hand stitch the whole thing, which I thought it was just going to be too much work for me. Again, everybody's different. You might find sewing to be a relaxing activity. I do not like to sew, or do I not? Or I can sew by hand because that's one thing that we learned in school. But I cannot sew using a machine. So, anyways, once I cut it out, I will be using a hot glue. If you've been around my channel for a while, I often use hot glue to um, create pillows because I do find for me it is the easiest way to do it. So you choose how you want to put this pillow together, is what I'm trying to say. But if you do choose to, I guess even sew it or hot glue it, do it inside out so that way all your stitching and all your gluing is on the inside, not on the outside. And I left the side of his stomach, one of the sides of his stomach open so that way I can stuff it with some pillow stuffing. And if you are using a hot glue to do this, use some sort of a tool to press the fabric down because you will burn yourself. Or you could even flip it around, and the thicker side, like the Sherpa side, would have probably been a smarter side for me to press down on, as it was thicker. So I did burn myself a few times. So just be careful of that. So once it was done, you want to completely dry it so that way when you're pulling it apart by flipping it inside out or outside in, you don't burn yourself. So I just did my Mr. Spice first, and then I went in and did my Mrs. Spice while Mr. Spice was drying. So once he was dry, I went ahead and I turned him inside out or outside in.
Moment we'll fill with love and joy. Loving so beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you, with you. I don't need any presents as long as
You want to go in there and push out all of his arms and feet and head, all of that out so that way it's the right shape and it's not folded. Also check around and see if there's any holes that maybe came apart. I did find two, which is not a big deal. Just add a little bit of glue to it so that way you close up the holes so your stuffing doesn't poke out. Before you stuff him, you do want to add your embellishments like your eyes, your buttons, and the little designs on his arms like he has on the Pottery Barn website. Um, I don't know what I was doing here. I was trying to figure out the middle for the eyes. Now I use ribbon for this. You can use fabric, you can use felt, but for Mr. Spice, I did ribbons and a fabric for the eyes, and then for Mrs. Spice, I used just paint. Now, the reason why I ended up using paint for Mrs. Spice is because I wasn't loving how the hot glue was a little bit showing on the ribbons. And one way to avoid that is you can sew these in. You can also use fabric glue instead of the hot glue. That would probably be your best bet if you don't want to sew this on. If you are going to sew this, I would recommend that you do this before you put the bear together, so that way it's a little bit easier for you to sew just on the Sherpa side before you put the bottom side on, because then it's going to be hard to get the needle out if you have it closed. So that's just a little tip. You can either you can also is it embroider it like a, or is it cross stitch? Which one is it? I do not know. Let me know which one that is. Uh, all the designs as well, which I was contemplating to do. I know exactly what I'm talking about in my mind, but I do not know how to say it in English. But so I was planning on doing that, but then I just thought this would be a little bit easier, and I also didn't have all the necessary thread to do that. So I went ahead and I cut out some buttons, and then I also cut out, I was going to use the eyes, ribbons for the eyes, but then I saw that it was a little bit too small. So I went and I just got one of those fabric rolls from Dollar Tree and cut the eyes out of that.
The wonders of life got the prettiest side for everyone to enjoy. Standing up close by the Christmas tree.
I also cut the mouth out of the fabric instead of the ribbon because I found the ribbon wasn't, I couldn't get the ribbon to curl up, so he looked more angry than smiling.
Glimmering light, I am right where I wanna be. I will be home for a couple of days. Wander around with you. You and me in the cold, thought it'd never be true. Wherever I go, I got you. Oh, I have stopped running, there is no way trying. You better loosen your belts. Drinking hot wine by the fire. Don't care of anything else. It's Christmas and some kind of love, my friend. I pray it will never end. Do you like to be here too? It's Christmas and outside snow's glistening. It's just you and me tonight. I'll spend all this Christmas with you.
So once all the stuff had time to dry, I stuffed the bear, and I just used stuffing from an old pillow.
Oh, it's such a charm, got you up in my arms. There's nobody at the door. You said I wish this will never be over. Darling, it's time for your present. Come over here. Now it is time to get out in the snow, lighting a light with you. Choirs will sing and the joy bells will ring. Nobody loves you as much as I do. It's a wonderful feeling from floor to the ceiling.
once he was stuffed, I just had glued the side, and then I just tried to spread out the stuffing as much as possible. These are decorative pillows, not to sleep on. And here they are. What do you guys think? I'm not sure. I do love how well the white shows against the brown on the Mr. Spice, so I might go in and add those to Mrs. Spice, but I think she looks cute as well. It looks better off camera than the camera is showing it here, but I love them either way. For my next project, I picked up these tapered candles and I love the little design on them. They have stripes at Dollar Tree. And then I got some hot water. I did boil it and let it cool off. And I'm going to be making these Christmas tree candles. I let this sit in the hot water for maybe 45 seconds, and then I took a knife and I just made cuts. Now you want to make these cuts fairly deep. If you want them to lift up, you can just curve your knife up and they will lift up a little bit, or you can just go straight up, so that way they're just cuts without lifting too much. I did have to put these in as I was working with them, just to melt it a little bit more. As it cooled off, it went hard as a wax would. So I just went and did this all from the top to the bottom, doing these cuts. I think these turned out really cute. Definitely worth trying out. I probably next time wouldn't lift them up as much as I was lifting them here, but I am planning on making more as I love them. I love the way they turned out. I styled my coffee table with these in my living room.
Time of the year, drinking hot wine by the fire. Here on our own, we got nothing.
I have another easy project. If you watched my 2 weeks ago DIY, you might have seen this print. I will share it down below if you want to do this yourself. So I printed it off. I made the design and I printed it off, and then I took some coffee grounds and I added some hot water to them. I did have to strain these because when I first started painting with the coffee, there was a little bit too many coffee grounds on it. If you have instant coffee, this probably wouldn't happen, but I did not have instant coffee. And I'm trying to recreate some of these paintings, prints that you can buy all through different websites. Etsy is probably one of the most popular ones, and a lot of people add them to really nice vintage frames. So it's not about it being expensive. I just think I can create it for pretty much free with items that I have on hand. Like I said, I made this design myself, so that didn't cost me anything. And the frame that I'm going to be using is an old frame that I'm going to just upcycle a little bit, make it look a little bit more vintage. So I painted the whole picture, including the Christmas tree with this coffee, and this just gave it that vintage look, that aged look. So I painted the picture with a foam brush, and then I went in with my craft sponge and I just dabbed everywhere just to blend all the brush strokes.
It's Christmas and some kind of love, my friend. Pick up some candy canes and hang a wreath on your door.
While that picture was drying, I got my frame and I added some rub and buff on it all over. I went in all over that, especially into the little roses that were on the frame, just to really have it pop.
It's Christmas, outside snow's glistening. It's just you and me tonight. It's just you and me tonight. It's just you and me tonight. I'll spend all this Christmas with you.
So once I had most of the frame covered, I went in with some of my spun gold and I just touched up in certain spots, not all over the place, just in certain areas, just to give it that little bit of a, uh, what would it be called? A vintage depth. And then to finish the frame up, I added a little bit of black in just certain spots and I just dabbed it on with my craft sponge, sort of to blend it in. And I did dab it into the paint and then I dabbed it off onto the box just to so I don't have a big blob of paint.
Merry Christmas, baby. Reindeer's coming out to play. Santa Claus is packing the presents, making sure you've been behaving okay.
And then while the frame was drying, my picture was all dry and I just went in with my hand and just rubbed off any of the coffee grounds that might have ended up there. They just fell right off. And then I took Mod Podge and I just brushed it over the tree area mostly. So it looks like it was an actual painting. The tree was actually painted on.
Merry Christmas, honey. Yeah. The snowman's dusting off his hat, putting on the show for everybody. You give him
I think this is such a great way to add a vintage decor into your home without spending the money that some of these items might cost altogether. So for my first project, I'm going to be creating the St. Jude candles from a Pottery Barn. These are bell-looking candles, and I've wanted to create this for such a long time, all of last year, and I just couldn't find something that would work that I liked. So when my friend asked me if I wanted these, I knew exactly what I'm going to use them for. And I'm also purchased two candles from Dollar Tree, although I should have purchased probably four more. And then I'm going to also add some essential oils to create that cozy winter Christmas scent. So the first thing that I did is I went ahead and I spray painted it. This it will just give me a quick and solid base for these candle holders, and I'm using a metallic gold spray paint to do this. Once the project had fully dried, I went in with a couple different paints just to create that vintage, almost like hammered look that those candles have. So I'm going to be using some metallic, some spun gold, some yellow gold, and then also a metallic cinnamon. And I think this will just give me that look that I'm going for. First, I tried to do it with a sponge brush, which worked okay. But then I went ahead and got my craft brush, craft foam sponge, not brush, and I wetted it, and that worked really, really well. Started off with spun gold, but then I decided to add more colors to it and just blend it in together as I go. So I added some yellow gold, and then later on I add some metallic cinnamon. By blending in all the three colors and plus the base color, it just gave me the depth and it gave me that vintage hammered look that I was trying to achieve. I also wanted to take a moment to thank you all for giving me so much love on my last two videos. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I am so grateful that you guys are enjoying all of the DIYs that I have been creating. I have been having so much fun creating and even more fun decorating with them for Christmas, as I already started decorating my home. So once I completed one, I did repeat that on the lids as well as on the other jar. I just didn't want to bore you with it. And then while that was drying, I did melt the candles, just putting the candles into the pot of water and boiling the water, which melts the wax. And then I removed the wax strip and added it to my jar, making sure that there was some wax on the bottom of the jar so that way that will act as a glue. And then I also used a stick just to wrap the wick around so that way it stays in place. And then when I poured on the melted candle, because I always forget how much less is in there than what the what it actually looks like once it's solid. So this gave me about a quarter of the container of the jar of wax. So I did add a little bit from the other one as well. So that now I have two half full candle holders, which is okay. Next time, because I can always make more if I feel that I burn through it. I don't typically burn through candles a lot because I don't burn a lot of candles in my home anymore, but once in a while I do like to light it up for ambiance. We'll see how much of it I actually use it up. I did end up adding some of the essential oils. I added well a little bit more cinnamon than I anticipated because the drops weren't coming out, so I took the thing off of it. But it would be 2 drops of each, and it's cinnamon, pine needles, and orange, and it gives you a really cozy Christmas scent. So now I'm repeating the same process for the other jar, and like I said, I filled it about halfway and then I added the rest to the other jar. And then while that was setting, I wanted to do something for this tip of the jar lid. So I decided to wrap rope around it, and I used a little bit of hot glue to secure the first end of the rope, and then I went ahead and wrapped, adding dabs of hot glue along the way so that way it just stays in place because it was narrow at the bottom and wider on the top. If I didn't add the glue, the rope kept sliding down, so this just kept it in place. And I did the same thing for the other jar lid as well, so that way they match. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using them together when I decorate, but in case if I do, they will look like they are a pair. And to complete it, I added more hot glue on top just to add to close up the top, and then I tied it in a knot with leaving a little loop on top of it. And I absolutely love the way this turned out. I am quite happy that I finally found something that I liked for this dupe. There are lots of dupes. People use a lot of different supplies for this dupe, but I haven't seen one with an apothecary jar yet. So here's one for you guys. Let me know what you think. Wouldn't be a DIY video without adding some more ornaments. We've all seen, this is not necessarily a price dupe, it's more or less finding them in store. You've all seen the flocked ornaments, everybody has them. McGee Co has them, Pottery Barn has them. These are more pricier, but you can also find them at Michael's. I haven't been able to find them at home since we do not have Target or Hobby Lobby. So I wanted brown ones. I did find beige ones and black ones at Michael's, but I could not find brown ones. And to get the flocking material, it is so expensive to get it shipped to Canada. I've found them on Etsy, and I think for one color it would cost me over $30 for a little bag of it. So I've been trying to figure out a way to create these without the flocking, and this came pretty close, and I was quite happy with the way it turned out. So I started off with spray painting the ornaments. I had these flat ornaments on hand. I bought those on sale 2 years ago at Michael's. So they had come in handy for creating DIYs, and I didn't want to go out and buy some more because I want to use up some of my stash. So this is why I'm using the flat ones, but this would work for round ones as well. They sell lots of them at Dollar Tree. I'm using dark walnut. Again, I want to create that brown, although this dark walnut was a little bit darker, but it worked really well as a base. And then while I was spray painting, I also took the lids and I spray painted them with that metallic gold paint that I just used for the candle holders. And I think this just gives it that more of a high-end look. If these are painted, you can also use a rub and buff on them, or I haven't had luck with just going straight with acrylic paint. I find that it doesn't really stick on, so I always like to spray paint a base color, and then if you still want to add more color to it, a little bit of a different color, you can go in and it makes the paint stick a little better. Now, if you have seen a lot of my DIY videos where I create these type of ornaments, I usually put the flower directly onto the wet paint. But I watched a video on Instagram, I believe, and she was saying to let the paint dry completely, then get the ornament wet with water, uh, and then add flour. This way the flour is not gonna cling on to paint and pull it off, which happened to me before. Even when the ornaments were dry, if there was just a little patch of maybe a wet bubble or something, it would pull the paint off. So this just makes sure that that paint stays on there. So I did this. I took just a spray sprayed it. You could also just wet them um, with a brush, or just run them over the water, I guess, too. You could do that as well. It looked like the water was sliding right off, but the ornaments were wet. So I was able to get that flour to stick there. And you want to let this completely dry. And with it being water, you could tell uh, when it was dry and when it wasn't dry. So once they were fully dry, I took a dry brush. This could be just any brush, as long as it's dry, and just brushed all the flour off. Now, once I felt that all the loose flour was off, I went ahead and took some of my brown paint from Dollar Tree. It's an acrylic brown paint. I think it's called milk chocolate, I believe, and then just dabbed it with a wet sponge on. And this gave it that almost felt texture, which the flocked ornaments have. So as you can see, the base color didn't really matter in this case. You probably could have just sprayed it with water and then went ahead with flour, because the paint was completely covering it. Now you could also just leave it, uh, brush off some more flour off and leave it, and that would give you a different look as well. So lots of choices here, and of course the color is also a choice. So I went with brown because that is what I wanted. Now I was finding that the brown was a little, I want to say, maybe a little darker, or too brown. So I am going to be adding a little bit of white to this as well. I was just trying to get it as close to the color that I had in my on my mind that these should look like. I just love the way these turned out, and I can't wait to use them on my front foyer tree, as I'm changing the whole look of that tree this year. For my next DIY, I picked up these Dollar Tree bells. They were $1.25. I'm pretty sure every Dollar Tree has these, and I'm going to be recreating this look, although I'm going to be using 3 bells, not 5, because I'm going to be making 2 of them. So I removed all the little embellishments that the bells had, and then I went in with, again, those 3 colors: spun gold, um, yellow gold, and then cinnamon. But I'm not going to be painting these. I tried painting them, and I felt that the paint wasn't really going on as well as I would like. So I went in, and then I ended up dabbing the paint on instead of brushing it on, which you will see in just a minute. And I had to work in stages for this. So I went first with the spun gold, and I only did the top part. The bottom part is a little bit flatter. So I let the bottom so I did the top part, and then I let it fully dry before I did the bottom part, and then I repeated the same process with all the paints that I was adding, although I was mixing the next 2 paints together and dabbing them together at the same time. But I did do one half first and then the next half once it's dried. So this project did take a little bit of time, but the end result is so worth it. For past few years, I have been obsessed with decorating with bells, whether that's the vintage cowbells or just any gold rustic looking bells. And so I wanted to recreate this because I wanted to add something to my outdoor wreath, and which is another project in this DIY video that I will be sharing. And I wanted to spruce up my wreath, but I also wanted to add bells to it. So I decided to make my own to add to it. And I am obsessed with how all those 2 projects came together and how it looks on my front door. So once they were painted and dried, I went ahead and got some rope. I have just some twine, and I also have some thicker rope that I'm going to be using. And I wanted to make like a door hanger almost with the rope. So I went ahead and I tied a loop, and then I went with a thicker rope and I wrapped it around and created a little bit of a longer loop at the top, just to kind of recreate that look that the bells or here had. And so that way I can hang them up on my door, I can hang them up on my banister, my mantle, wherever I choose to use them, if I choose to use them outside of my wreath. And as I mentioned before, I am grouping them by 3, and I'm making them 3 different lengths. So when you're cutting your rope, you want to make sure that it's cut different lengths, or that you tie a knot at a different length. And as I mentioned before, I just love the way these guys turned out. And I think it's such an inexpensive project to give you that high-end elevated look. Especially, I I've decorated with these white bells before, but I am so feeling the traditional colors this year, along with some vintage and earthy tones, and that is what all of my decor in the house is, with some nostalgic pieces sprinkled in throughout. So if you ever want to check out how I decorate with all of these things, I do have a home channel where I share all that, and it's linked down below. So let me know what you guys think about these guys. So for my next project, I use this very expensive wreath for an inspiration from Pottery Barn. And this one is a little bit smaller, as I have, I think these are 10-inch round forms from Dollar Tree, but I needed a smaller one because I'm going to be using it on my home sign. I like to switch out the wreath that I use, and I needed one for there because I used the one that was originally there somewhere else in a house. So I went in my stash and I picked up all the berries that I had that were just for crafting. And then for the base, this you can't even see, but I wanted a bit of a solid base for the wreath. I use the pine needles, pine branches from Dollar Tree, and I just had glued them onto the wreath. Before I did that, I did take off some of the other branches off of a garland that I had, just to use to add a bit of a different textures. I am pulling these long ones. I did not end up using these. And then I also get the pine cones and the berries all ready for my wreath assembly. So once I had all of my embellishments ready, it was time to assemble the wreath. So like I mentioned before, I'm going to hot glue the branches on. This will create a base for my wreath. It took 5 of these to cover the whole wreath. So once that was in place, I took a berry garland. This is a garland that I've had for probably about 20 some years. I still use it on my family room tree all the time, but I had switched out my tree 2 years ago, so I have a much smaller one. And so I have a lot of these wreaths left, a lot of these garlands left over. So I'm going to add that one to it. I am just removing the end pieces that no longer have berries on them. I'm also removing some berries that were broken. And then I'm also going to clip off tips that don't have anything on them past the berries. I am leaving the leaves on there as well and just spreading everything out. And now I'm going to hot glue the whole garland onto the wreath and it will cover the whole top of the wreath. The inspiration piece has lots of different berries, from large ones to small, the clusters of berries to smaller berries, from bright red to dark red. So that is what I'm trying to recreate here. I did end up adding another one, another smaller one in here, just because the first one didn't fully go around. So once it was on there, I went ahead and trimmed off any pieces that I did that were empty, and just a little unnecessary twigs that were sticking out. Then I just shaped it the way I wanted to, and then I started with adding the other stuff to it. Whenever I'm working with a wreath this size, I like to add my biggest pieces first, because I feel like this takes up the most space, and then I can kind of see where I can add all the smaller pieces as fillers. So guys, I would like to know, what are your colors for this year for Christmas? Are you going with traditional? Are you going with earthy? Are you mixing it all together? Are you going on the wild side and using a lot of different colors? I would love to know. I love Christmas decor. It is one of my favorite holidays to decorate for. And I love fall as a season to decorate for, but Christmas is definitely a holiday that I enjoy decorating for the most. And I transform my whole main floor into a Christmas wonderland. So let me know down below what your theme this year is for your Christmas decor. So once all of my berries were in place, I am adding my greenery picks in here, like my pine, I think I will add a little bit of cedar as well. I don't know whether I have spruce. I'm not 100% sure what exactly all of these are called. But anyways, I'm just adding them in, and then I'm going to finish it off with some pine cones. I did go ahead and grab a couple more pieces just to fill it in a little bit more. And I absolutely love with the way this turned out. And now we are moving on to my wreath. This might be familiar to some of you that have been around for a while. This was originally Michael's wreath that had a lot of stuff on it. A few years back, I took most of the embellishments off and added extra branches to it, like cedar. And then I also had some pine needles that I added to it and some blackberries, and it's been serving me quite well. But I wanted to spruce it up a little bit as I've seen this wreath that I absolutely love. Now this one is from McGee Co, so I guess we do have one McGee Co inspiration here. And so I wanted to kind of recreate it, but I didn't want to go out and spend money on a wreath, because this one was in a perfect shape still, and it's pretty good quality. I did spend about, I think they were about $50, but they did have buy one get one free at Michael's. But I'm talking about probably going back about maybe even 10 years ago. And like I said, it's still in a really good shape. So I did wanted to spruce it up a little bit and give it some new life. So I'm starting off with tying up the twine, and now I'm going to take this twine and just wrap it around and make it a fairly thick top. I'm also going to be adding some cedar picks that I have. These came from Timu, which I will show you in just a little bit. I was actually thinking about maybe adding some pine cones, some more pine cones to it, because it does have couple you just can't see. So I was thinking about getting a bit bigger ones and adding those, but I am not doing that in this video. That's something that I might decide to do. Do you guys use real garland wreaths? I did make a real wreath once and that I used on my side door, and I loved it, and it lasted me the whole season. I just went ahead and cut some branches out of my kitchen, out of my backyard, and use those. But I think I did share that on my channel, but probably looking back several years ago. I know you can buy them, but I just wanted to know, do you guys have a fake one, or do you guys use the real ones? I do love the look of the real ones, and it probably would save me some storage space, but I don't love spending the money every year. So make sure when you are tying these up that you leave yourself an end to tie it to. I kind of wrapped it in there, so I was just trying to tie it to a loop. So when I did my next one, I did leave in it. I am not sharing how I did the next one because I it's just a repetitive thing. So I'm sharing with you how I did just the one of them. So here I am adding the cedar picks. Like I said, these came from Timu. They were very inexpensive. I will link them down below. And what do you guys think? I think this is looking really good, and I think it's going to look absolutely spectacular with my DIY bells. I hope you found tons of inspiration for these 25 high-end Christmas dupes. Don't forget to like this video, leave me a comment letting me know which DIY was your favorite, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. This is just the beginning of my Christmas DIY season, and I have so many new Pottery Barn and McGee Co inspired DIYs and other high-end stores coming your way. You won't want to miss them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next DIY.